as I know. Happy Monday, my friends. Hope you had a marvelous weekend. I did, but according to my legal counsel, it never happened. So Ukrainian President Zelenskyy was on 60 Minutes last night. I wonder, in speaking to NATO, did he call them weak?
In speaking to NATO, you called them weak. In speaking to the UN Security Council, you said, if you can't help, you shouldn't exist. Not very diplomatic of you. I wonder why you feel the need to speak so bluntly.
When you're working at diplomacy, there are no results. All of this is very bureaucratic. That's why the way I am talking to them is absolutely justifiable. I don't have any more lives to give. I don't have any more emotions. I'm no longer interested in their diplomacy that leads to the destruction of my country.
Well, there you go. Now, when COVID first broke out, Donald Trump used the war metaphor. We're fighting a disease, but it's no different than war. This was to get America to see that we're in this thing together, as if it were possible to share a foxhole with Nancy Pelosi and Rashida Tlaib. And just like in war, truth was the first casualty. The second was your relatives in blue state nursing homes. So now it seems we can use COVID as an analogy for war. Do we want the illness to spread? A question someone should have asked the people who created CNN+. But also, do we want a war to turn into a world war? Do the wrong thing and war can spread faster than that rash I keep getting when I don't wipe down my old thigh master. Ooh, that was graphic. But as we saw in COVID, tactics change the incoming data, and data then changes future tactics. Are we interpreting the data correctly? Is the data reliable? The masks work or they don't? That's like the debate over what helps the Ukrainians. The lockdowns are the larger commitment. It's about sacrifice. Do we send jets or do we send boots on the ground? Social distancing? That sounds like drones. They make contact so you don't have to. But ultimately, what do we want to do versus what do we decide to do? Is it about speeding up the end of the war or winning this war outright? As an amateur historian, meaning I only read the funny parts of Kilmeade's books, and there aren't any. For the sake of lives lost, is it better to end war fast, given the fear that as wars go on, they go on and they go on? The longer they last, the less likely they end. See Afghanistan. Even when you win, you lose. The fog of war doesn't help. Now, looking at how the Ukrainians, with our help, have stymied Russia, the instinct is to keep going and go for the kill, to go from ending to winning. So what are we willing to risk? How do we define winning? Russia is losing in various ways. Putin is viewed globally as despicable, and this is with his shirt on. Ukrainians are seen as heroic, and the losses incurred by the Russians are no longer small. You can see they're changing their course. Maybe they're going to be there for good, occupying like a new strain of COVID. And then what? Here's the problem with us. It's not like we can wait to see how it's going, because pretty soon we'll be on to something else. The media can have the collective attention span of a gnat on bath salts, and I include myself in that. But also, we can't really tell who's winning. Is it the patient or is it the disease? Ukrainians are worthy of support given their bravery. They are the victims. You can argue about the past and even our own culpability, but Russia did invade after all. But does more support extend the war or does it help end it? That's been the question since the beginning. The sanctions failed to bring Putin to his knees. The ruble is rebounding. Meanwhile, the cost of sanctions is going to put the poorest at risk. This is sounding more like COVID all the time. Still, it makes sense to punish Putin. But is it time to really engage the Russian people? Do we load up the Ukrainians with the latest tech? We probably are. Maybe it's time to give them more. But that could always lead to more involvement, more commitment, and then that leads to who knows what. So can you handle a war with inflation, crime, and Democrats running wild? My thinking is you should be resistant to measures even as you suggest them. One thing we don't want to do, make things worse. But tell that to a Ukrainian woman who has lost her husband and kids to one of Putin's missiles. And although past experiences in war would suggest, yeah, we have worsened things, can this war get worse? So how's that for riding a fence? I've been riding it so long I have an ass full of splinters. But it can be the best vantage point when making decisions that result in death. You know, I believed in the obsolescence of ground wars. A thing of the past, I'd say. It's all about drones. We'll fight the wars with joysticks in basements. And so even with those Russian troops flooding the border, like people getting sick in Wuhan, we really still didn't buy it. The media cried wolf so many times, we thought they were trying to wake up Mr. Blitzer. But maybe we weren't mistaken thinking conventional war is kind of over. Perhaps we were overconfident, like when I thought that stripper was my girlfriend. Maybe Ukraine is one modern example to show how ground wars don't work. You see crumpled tanks, a desperate military, but without visual explanation for it. Modern tech is teaching Putin that he cannot occupy a country even if he's way bigger. How can he occupy when drones never sleep? We're now seeing a ground force getting crushed by the offspring of Radio Shack. It's not really that different from that remote-controlled race car you got for Christmas. And Putin didn't even see it coming. Let's welcome tonight's guest. I turn him on at 6 p.m., but he turns me on 24/7. Yeah, that was creepy. Host of Special Report, Brett Baer. She's covered more games than the roof at Dave & Buster's. Former sportscaster Michelle Tafoya. Go Bears. If you don't have anything nice to say, then you'll probably get along with her. Fox business anchor, Dagan McDowell. And finally, she's down to earth, like the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. Fox News contributor, Couture. Brett, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm just really impressed that you got a thigh master rash into a war monologue.
I know.
I mean, that's really impressive.
If I'm going to do serious topics, I have to do them my way,
I
Brett.
hear you.
You know what I'm saying? And believe me, you should have seen the alternatives. If that was the one that made the cut. There were things in there, Brett, that would make your skin crawl.
On the edit room floor.
Yes, I'd like to read them to you after the show, if you don't mind.
Thanks.
We're still on, right?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. You know, you have the directions. My assistant will pick you up and drop you off at the same place. We'll have you blindfolded so you don't know where the hot tub is.
Oh dear.
Yes. Can you're a vet in the news business. Can you make heads or tails in this war in terms of momentum? I go backwards and forwards. Today, I'm thinking Russia moving away from Kiev, they lost. And now they're going to have to do another thing. But then I go like, they could easily win it. I don't know where to go.
I think that's right. And it's really tough to see on the ground. We've been very fortunate. We have reporters who've been out, and we've paid a price for that at Fox, obviously. But you can't see all of the stuff that's happening through Ukraine. You can see that Ukrainians won in Kyiv. They pushed Russians out, but now they're regrouping and they're going to the east. So I think it could be just a matter of time. What Zelensky's saying at every media possible, and they talk really slow on 60 Minutes.
Yes.
Very deliberate.
Exactly.
But he's saying, I need the weapons now to keep this going, this momentum. And I agree with you. You can't say who's going to win.
Yeah, it's just unknowable until it happens. And then, I don't know, and then everybody can say, I knew it was going to happen, Michelle. We fall into these analogies, and there is almost like, I go to you with a predictable question, the sports analogy, right? It's like, there are two sides, and we get behind one side, and we root for that side, and maybe we don't have a lot invested in it, but we still root for it anyway. And it's like easy for us because we're over here.
Because we're over here.
Right.
And this is the first war that we're watching through social media and through real-time interviews and pictures. But I love what Zelenskyy said about the UN. I'm going to read you a quote, and I want you to tell me if you know who this is. I discovered that the world should be divided not into good and bad people, but into cowards and non-cowards. 95% of cowards are capable of the vilest things, lethal things, at the mildest threat. Anyone? Anyone? Varlam Shalamov, the Russian writer who was
going to say that.
who was this close.
Cat had it.
You know,
I was going to say Gallagher, but anyway.
He spent the better part of 15 years in forced labor camps under Stalin, right? So this guy knows what he's talking about. I think there are a lot of cowards in the UN, and I love what he said to them. what are you about?
Yeah.
What are you even doing to help here? I mean, I think we know if you want to choose a side or the other, I'm choosing the side that got attacked here.
Exactly.
I'm backing this side because they did nothing to bring this on.
Right.
But what has the UN ever done? Why do they exist?
They eat lunches.
They eat lunches. They gather. They tell their nice speeches.
They snarl traffic.
They snarl traffic in New York.
They occupy our sex workers when they could be doing other things.
And in 2020, the United States spent $11.5 billion to be a member of the UN.
Yes.
What is this about? And why are they not doing more? And when you consider their Human Rights Council and their Security Council and who is on these councils, China and Venezuela, he had every right to be undiplomatic, as it was read to him, because it's insane. I feel like we've seen this movie before. We saw it with Hitler. We said never again, and here we are.
All right. Dagan,
Yeah.
you're the business mind here.
Oh, you brought me in for that? I thought I was here to, like, tell some lady jokes and make Brett uncomfortable.
That's later.
Besmirch his reputation.
Oh, you could do I think you can do both.
Okay.
A little bit of business, expertise, and then something really crass and disgusting.
Okay, I can do both.
What about
first?
First, I want to ask, how much longer can Putin do this financially?
As long as he wants, because he's taking in about $1 billion a day from natural gas and oil that's being sold to the West and to Europe. And that is money that's going straight into his hands to kill Ukrainians and to wage that war. And that's why the response, and it's ultimately Biden and company that are in charge of it, and it's why it's less than hapless. Like, Biden wants to make a cute joke that the ruble was turned to rubble. Actually, no. And that's not funny, Grandpa, but it's back to where it was. The ruble is back to where it was right about the time of the invasion, if not before, because more money is going into Russia than is coming out of Russia. And one more thing about the money, natural gas flows into Europe via Ukraine are at the highest level that they've been since the war. So the money just keeps rolling in. And to pick up on something...
What are we doing?
Well, because Europe's dependent on it, and Europe can't cut off Russia, and is showing they're trying to find other sources. Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and Kuwait have turned their backs on Biden, and they're actually pumping less oil than OPEC Plus promised. They're not even stepping up to produce what Europe might need, not buying from Russia. Just one more thing.
I hope this is the crude part, because
I'm going to quote Winston Churchill.
All right.
Money talks and cow walks.
Okay.
And that's what Zelensky's
That
talking
was kind of
about.
better than my quote, I think.
I don't know. I
made it
mean, technically it can't walk, but I guess it's a man. I don't know. Kat, we're kind of doing a reassessment here of how things are going. What do you see? Are you optimistic or are you pessimistic?
I'm always pessimistic,
Yep.
but that's just me. I don't know. I think that it's one of these things where I think it's good to have a view like you have, where you worry about, externalities of the situation, because we tend to view things in, a polarized binary way. And if you do say something like, hey, you might be concerned about getting more involved and escalating the conflict, then someone will say to you, like, what if your grandma got shot in the head with a Russian bullet? I'm like, well, I would be very upset.
Right.
Like, what do you think? Of course, you can realize how brutal what is happening is, but also realize that taking certain actions could escalate it and make it worse.
Yeah, but you can't have that fear, or not a fear, that concern keep you paralyzed in action. I think the fear of nuclear war is a thing that people rely on, but it is a real concern. But like, we've lived with that concern for decades. Yes, so it's like, this is nothing new. They could have done it before. All right, we got to move on.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.